Chapter 53. Bless the Child, Argetlam. Eragon stretched in the hall. He was stiff from sitting so long. Behind him, the twins entered Ajihad's study and closed the door. Eragon looked at Auric. "I'm sorry that you're in trouble because of me," he apologised. "Don't bother yourself," grunted Auric, tugging on his beard. "Ajihad gave me what I wanted." Even Saphira was startled by the statement. "What do you mean?" said Eragon. "You can't train or fight, and you're stuck guarding me. How can that be what you wanted?" The dwarf eyed him quietly. "Ajihad is a good leader. He understands how to keep the law, yet remain just. I have been punished by his command, but I'm also one of Hrothgar's subjects. Under his rule, I'm still free to do what I wish." Eragon realised it would be unwise to forget Auric's dual loyalty and the split nature of power within Trondheim. "Ajihad just placed you in a powerful position, didn't he?" Auric chuckled deeply. "Hehehehe. That he did, and in such a way the twins can't complain about it. This'll irritate them for sure. Ajihad's a tricky one, he is. Come, lad, I'm sure you're hungry, and we have to get your dragon settled in." Saphira hissed. Eragon said, "Her name is Saphira." Auric made a small bow to her. "My apologies, I'll be sure to remember that." He took an orange lamp from the wall and led them down the hallway. "Can others in Farthendur use magic?" asked Eragon, struggling to keep up with the dwarf's brisk pace. He cradled Zarok carefully, concealing the symbol on the sheath with his arm. "Few enough," said Auric with a swift shrug under his mail. "And the ones we have can't do much more than heal bruises. They've all had to tend to Arya because of the strength needed to heal her. Except for the twins." "Oi," grumbled Auric. "She wouldn't want their help anyway. Their arts are not for healing. Their talents lie in scheming and plotting for power, to everyone else's detriment. Daenor, Ajihad's predecessor, allowed them to join the Varden because he needed their support. You can't oppose the Empire without spellcasters who can hold their own on the field of battle. They're a nasty pair, but they do have their uses." They entered one of the 4 main tunnels that divided Trondheim. Clusters of dwarves and humans strolled through it, voices echoing loudly off the polished floor. The conversation stopped abruptly as they saw Saphira, scores of eyes fixed on her. Auric ignored the spectators and turned left, heading toward one of Trondheim's distant gates. "Where are we going?" asked Eragon. "Out of these halls so Saphira could fly to the dragonhold above Isidar Mithrim," the star rose. "The dragonhold doesn't have a roof. Trondheim's peak is open to the sky, like that of Farthendur, so she, that is, you, Saphira, will be able to glide straight down into the hold. It is where the riders used to stay when they visited Trondheim." "Won't it be cold and damp without a roof?" asked Eragon. "Nay," Auric shook his head. "Farthendur protects us from the elements. Neither rain nor snow intrude here. Besides, the hold's walls are lined with marble caves for dragons. They'll provide all the shelter necessary. All you need to fear are the icicles. When they fall, they've been known to cleave a horse in 2. "I will be fine," assured Saphira. "Our marble cave is safer than any of the other places we've stayed." "Perhaps. Do you think Murtagh will be all right? Ajihad strikes me as an honourable man. Unless Murtagh tries to escape, I doubt he will be harmed." Eragon crossed his arms, unwilling to talk further. He was dazed by the change in circumstances from the day before. Their mad race from Gilead was finally over, but his body expected to continue running and riding. "Where are our horses?" "In the stables by the gate. We can visit them before leaving Trondheim." They exited Trondheim through the same gate they had entered. The gold griffins gleamed with coloured lights garnered from scores of lanterns. The sun had moved during Eragon's talk with Ajihad. Light no longer entered Farthendur through the crater opening. Without those motored rays, the inside of the hollow mountain was velvety black. The only illumination came from Trondheim, which sparkled brilliantly in the gloom. The city mountain's radiance was enough to brighten the ground hundreds of feet away. Auric pointed at Trondheim's white pinnacle. "Fresh meat and pure mountain water await you up there," he told Saphira. "You may stay in any of the caves. Once you make your choice, bedding will be laid down in it and then no one will disturb you." "I thought we were going to go together. I don't want to be separated," protested Eragon. Auric turned to him. "Rider Eragon, I will do everything to accommodate you, but it would be best if Saphira waits in the dragon hold while you eat. The tunnels of the banquet halls aren't large enough for her to accompany us." "Why can't you just bring me food in the hold?" Because, said Oric with a guarded expression, the food is prepared down here and it is a long way to the top. If you wish, a servant could be sent up to the hold with a meal for you. It will take some time, but you could eat with Saphira then. He actually means it, Eragon thought, astonished that they would do so much for him. But the way Oric said it made him wonder if the dwarf was testing him somehow. I'm weary, said Saphira, and this dragon hold sounds to my liking. Go, have your meal, then come to me. It will be soothing to rest together without fear of wild animals or soldiers. We have suffered the hardships of the trail too long. Eragon looked at her thoughtfully, then said to Oric, I'll eat down here. The dwarf smiled, seeming satisfied. Eragon unstrapped Saphira's saddle so she could lie down without discomfort. Would you take Zarok with you? Yes, she said, gathering up the sword and saddle with her claws. But keep your bow. We must trust these people, though not to the point of foolishness. I know, he said, disquieted. With an explosive leap, Saphira swept off the ground and into the still air. The steady whoosh of her wings was the only sound in the darkness. As she disappeared over the rim of Trondheim's peak, Oric let out a long breath. Ah, boy, you have been blessed indeed. I find a sudden longing in my heart for open skies and soaring cliffs and the thrill of hunting like a hawk. Still, my feet are better on the ground, preferably under it. He clapped his hands loudly. I neglect my duties as a host. I know you've not dined since that pitiful dinner the twins saw fit to give you, so come, let's find the cooks and beg meat and bread from them. Eragon followed the dwarf back into Trondheim and through a labyrinth of corridors until they came to a long room filled with rows of stone tables only high enough for dwarves. Fires blazed in soapstone ovens behind a long counter. Oric spoke words in an unfamiliar language to a stout, ruddy-faced dwarf who promptly handed them stone platters piled with steaming mushrooms and fish. Then, Oric took Eragon up several flights of stairs and into a small alcove carved out of Trondheim's outer wall, where they sat cross-legged. Eragon wordlessly reached for his food. When their platters were empty, Oric sighed with contentment and pulled out a long-stemmed pipe. He lit it, saying, A worthy repast, though it needed a good draught of mead to wash it down properly. Eragon surveyed the ground below. Do you farm in Farthendur? No, there's only enough sunlight for moss, mushrooms, and mould. Trondheim cannot survive without supplies from the surrounding valleys, which is one reason why many of us chose to live elsewhere in the Boar Mountains. Then there are other dwarf cities? Not as many as we would like, and Trondheim is the greatest of them. Leaning on an elbow, Oric took a deep pull on his pipe. You have only seen the lower levels, so it hasn't been apparent, but most of Trondheim is deserted. The farther up you go, the emptier it gets. Entire floors have remained untouched for centuries. Most dwarves prefer to dwell under Trondheim and Farthendur in the caverns and passageways that riddle the rock. Through the centuries we have tunnelled extensively under the Boar Mountains. It is possible to walk from one end of the mountain range to the other without ever setting foot on the surface. It seems like a waste to have all that unused space in Trondheim, commented Eragon. Oric nodded. Some have argued for abandoning this place because of its drain on our resources, but Trondheim does perform one invaluable task. What's that? In times of misfortune, it can house our entire nation. There have been only 3 instances in our history where we have been forced to that extreme, but each time it has saved us from certain and utter destruction. That is why we always keep it garrisoned, ready for use. I've never seen anything as magnificent, admitted Eragon. Oric smiled around his pipe. I'm glad you find it so. It took generations to build Trondheim, and our lives are much longer than those of men. Unfortunately, because of the cursed empire, few outsiders are allowed to see its glory. How many Varden are here? Dwarves or humans? Humans. I want to know how many have fled the empire. Oric exhaled a long puff of smoke that coiled lazily around his head. There are about 4,000 of your kin here, but that's a poor indicator of what you want to know. Only people who wish to fight come here. The rest of them are under King Oren's protection in Surda. So few, thought Eragon with a sinking feeling. The royal army alone numbered nearly 16,000 when it was fully marshalled, not counting the Urgles. Why doesn't Oren fight the Empire himself? He asked. If he were to show open hostility, said Oric, Galbatorix would crush him. As it is, Galbatorix withholds that destruction because he considers Surda a minor threat, which is a mistake. It's through Orin's assistance that the Varden have most of their weapons and supplies. Without him, there would be no resisting the Empire. Don't despair over the number of humans in Trondheim. There are many dwarves here, many more than you have seen, and all will fight when the time comes. Orin has also promised us troops for when we battle Gabatorix. The elves pledged their help as well. Eragon absently touched Saphira's mind and found her busy eating a bloody haunch with gusto. He noticed once more the hammer and stars engraved on Oric's helm. What does that mean? I saw it on the floor in Trondheim. Oric lifted the iron-bound cap off his head and brushed a rough finger over the engraving. It is the symbol of my clan. We are the Ingietum, metalworkers and master smiths. The hammer and stars are inlaid into Trondheim's floor because it was the personal crest of Korgan, our founder. One clan to rule, with 12 surrounding. King Hrothgar is Grimst Ingietum as well, and has brought my house much glory, much honour. When they returned the platters to the cook, they passed the dwarf in the hall. He stopped before Eragon, bowed, and said respectfully, Argetlam. The dwarf left Eragon fumbling for an answer, flushed with unease, yet also strangely pleased with the gesture. No one had bowed to him before. What did he say? He asked, leaning closer to Oric. Oric shrugged, embarrassed. It's an elven word that was used to refer to the riders. It means silver hand. Eragon glanced at his gloved hand, thinking of the Gedway Ignasia that whitened his palm. Do you wish to return to Saphira? Is there somewhere I could bathe first? I haven't been able to wash off the grime of the road for a long time. Also, my shirt is blood-stained and torn, and it stinks. I'd like to replace it, but I don't have any money to buy a new one. Is there a way I could work for one? Do you seek to insult Hrothgar's hospitality, Eragon? Demanded Oric. As long as you are in Trondheim, you won't have to buy a thing. You'll pay for it in other ways. Ajihad and Hrothgar will see to that. Come, I'll show you where to wash, then fetch you a shirt. He took Eragon down a long staircase until they were well below Trondheim. The corridors were tunnels now, which cramped Eragon because they were only 5 feet high, and all the lanterns were red. So the light doesn't blind you when you leave or enter a dark cavern, explained Oric. They entered a bare room with a small door on the far side. Oric pointed. The pools are through there, along with brushes and soap. Leave your clothes here. I'll have new ones waiting when you get out. Eragon thanked him and started to undress. It felt oppressive being alone underground, especially with the low rock ceiling. He stripped quickly and, cold, hurried through the door into total darkness. He inched forward until his foot touched warm water, then eased himself into it. The pool was mildly salty but soothing and calm. For a moment he was afraid of drifting away from the door into deeper water, but as he waded forward, he discovered the water reached only to his waist. He groped over a slippery wall until he found the soap and brushes, then scrubbed himself. Afterward he floated with his eyes closed, enjoying the warmth. When he emerged, dripping, into the lighted room, he found a towel, a fine linen shirt, and a pair of breeches. The clothes fit him reasonably well. Satisfied, he went out into the tunnel. Oric was waiting for him, pipe in hand. They climbed the stairs back up into Trondheim, then exited the city mountain. Eragon gazed at Trondheim's peak and called Saphira with his mind. As she flew down from the dragon hold, he asked, How do you communicate with the people at the top of Trondheim? Oric chuckled. That's a problem we solved long ago. You didn't notice, but behind the open arches that line each level is a single, unbroken staircase that spirals around the wall of Trondheim's central chamber. The stairs climb all the way to the dragonhold above Isiadar Mithrim. We call it Volturin, the endless staircase. Running up or down it isn't swift enough for an emergency, nor convenient enough for casual use. Instead, we use flashing lanterns to convey messages. There is another way too, though it is seldom used. When Volturin was constructed, a polished trowel was cut next to it. The trowel acts as a giant slide as high as a mountain. Eragon's lips twitched with a smile. Is it dangerous? Do not think of trying it. The slide was built for dwarves and it's too narrow for a man. If you slipped out of it, you could be thrown onto the stairs and against the arches, perhaps even into empty space. Saphira landed a spear's throw away, her scales rustling dryly. As she greeted Eragon, humans and dwarves trickled out of Trondheim, gathering around her with murmurs of interest. Eragon regarded the growing crowd uneasily. You'd better go, said Oric, pushing him forward. Meet me by this gate tomorrow morning. I'll be waiting. Eragon balked. How will I know when it's morning? I'll have someone wake you. Now go. Without further protest, Eragon slipped through the jostling group that surrounded Saphira and jumped onto her back. Before she could take off, an old woman stepped forward and grasped Eragon's foot with a fierce grip. He tried to pull away, but her hand was like an iron talon around his ankle. He could not break her tenacious hold. The burning grey eyes she fixed on him were surrounded by a lifetime's worth of wrinkles. The skin was folded in long creases down her sunken cheeks. A tattered bundle rested in the crook of her left arm. Frightened, Eragon asked, "What do you want?" The woman tilted her arm, and a cloth fell from the bundle, revealing a baby's face. Hoarse and desperate, she said, "The child has no parents. There is no one to care for her but me, and I am weak. Bless her with your power, Argetlam. Bless her for luck." Eragon looked to Oryx for help, but the dwarf only watched with a guarded expression. The small crowd fell silent, waiting for his response. The woman's eyes were still fastened on him. "Bless her, Argetlam. Bless her," she insisted. Eragon had never blessed anyone. It was not something done lightly in Alagasia, as a blessing could easily go awry and prove to be more curse than boon, especially if it was spoken with ill intent or lack of conviction. "Do I dare take that responsibility?" he wondered. "Bless her, Argetlam. Bless her." Suddenly decided, he searched for a phrase or expression to use. Nothing came to mind until, inspired, he thought of the ancient language. This would be a true blessing, spoken with words of power by one of power. He bent down and tugged the glove off his right hand, laying his palm on the babe's brow. He intoned, "Atra gulai un ilian torthur ono un atra ono vais scolio fra ratha." The words left him unexpectedly weak, as if he had used magic. He slowly pulled the glove back on and said to the woman, "That is all I can do for her. If any words have the power to forestall tragedy, it will be those." "Thank you, Argetlam," she whispered, bowing slightly. She started to cover the baby again, but Saphira snorted and twisted until her head loomed over the child. The woman grew rigid. Her breath caught in her chest. Saphira lowered her snout and brushed the baby between the eyes with the tip of her nose, then smoothly lifted away. A gasp ran through the crowd, for on the child's forehead, where Saphira had touched her, was a star-shaped patch of skin as white and silvery as Eragon's Gedway Ignasia. The woman stared at Saphira with a feverish gaze, wordless thanks in her eyes. Immediately, Saphira took flight, battering the awestruck spectators with the wind from her powerful wing strokes. As the ground dwindled away, Eragon took a deep breath and hugged her neck tightly. "What did you do?" he asked softly. "I gave her hope, and you gave her a future." Loneliness suddenly flowered within Eragon, despite Saphira's presence. Their surroundings were so foreign. It struck him for the first time exactly how far he was from home. A destroyed home, but still where his heart lay. "What have I become, Saphira?" he asked. "I'm only in the first year of manhood, yet I've consulted with the leader of the Varden, and pursued by Galbatorix, and have travelled with Morzan's son, and now blessings are sought from me? What wisdom can I give people that they haven't already learned? What feats can I achieve that an army couldn't do better? It's insanity. I should be back in Carverhall with Roran." Saphira took a long time to answer, but her words were gentle when they came. "A hatchling. That is what you are. A hatchling struggling into the world. I may be younger than you in years, but I am ancient in my thoughts. Do not worry about these things. Find peace in where and what you are. People often know what must be done. All you need do is show them the way. That is wisdom. As for feats, no army could have given the blessing you did." "But it was nothing," he protested. "A trifle." "Nay, it wasn't. What you saw was the beginning of another story, another legend. Do you think that child will ever be content to be a tavern keeper or a farmer when her brow is dragon-marked and your words hang over her? You underestimate our power and that of fate." Eragon bowed his head. "It's overwhelming. I feel as if I am living in an illusion, a dream where all things are possible. Amazing things do happen, I know, but always to someone else, always in some far-off place and time. But I found your egg, was tutored by a rider, and duelled a shade. Those can't be the actions of the farm boy I am, or was. Something is changing me." "It is your weird that shapes you," said Saphira. "Every age needs an icon. Perhaps that lot has fallen to you. Farm boys are not named for the first rider without cause. Your namesake was the beginning, and now you are the continuation, or the end." "Ah," said Eragon, shaking his head. "It's like speaking in riddles." "But if all is foreordained, do our choices mean anything? Or must we just learn to accept our fate?" Saphira said firmly, "Eragon, I chose you from within my egg. You have been given a chance most would die for. Are you unhappy with that? Clear your mind of such thoughts. They cannot be answered and will make you no happier." "True," he said glumly. "All the same, they continue to bounce around within my skull. Things have been unsettled ever since Brom died. It has made me uneasy," acknowledged Saphira, which surprised him because she rarely seemed perturbed. They were above Trondheim now. Eragon looked down through the opening in its peak and saw the floor of the Dragonhold, Isildur Mithrim, the great star sapphire. He knew that beneath it was nothing but Trondheim's great central chamber. Saphira descended to the Dragonhold on silent wings. She slipped over its rim and dropped to Isildur Mithrim, landing with a sharp clack of claws. "Won't you scratch it?" asked Eragon. "I think not. It's no ordinary gem." Eragon slid off her back and slowly turned in a circle, absorbing the unusual sight. They were in a round, roofless room 60 feet high and 60 feet across. The walls were lined with the dark openings of caves, which differed in size from grottos no larger than a man to a gaping cavern larger than a house. Shiny rungs were set into the marble walls so that people could reach the highest caves. An enormous archway led out of the Dragonhold. Eragon examined the great gem under his feet and impulsively lay down on it. He pressed his cheek against the cool sapphire, trying to see through it. Distorted lines and wavering spots of colour glimmered through the stone, but its thickness made it impossible to discern anything clearly on the floor of the chamber a mile below them. "Will I have to sleep apart from you?" Saphira shook her enormous head. "No, there is a bed for you in my cave. Come see." She turned and, without opening her wings, jumped 20 feet into the air, landing in a medium-sized cave. He clambered up after her. The cave was dark brown on the inside and deeper than he had expected. The roughly chiselled walls gave the impression of a natural formation. Near the far wall was a thick cushion large enough for Saphira to curl up on. Beside it was a bed built into the side of the wall. The cave was lit by a single red lantern equipped with a shutter so its glow could be muted. "I like this," said Eragon. "It feels safe." "Yes." Saphira curled up on the cushion, watching him. With a sigh he sank onto the mattress, weariness seeping through him. "Saphira, you haven't said much while we've been here. What do you think of Trondheim and Azhihad?" "We shall see. It seems, Eragon, that we are embroiled in a new type of warfare here. Swords and claws are useless, but words and alliances may have the same effect. The twins dislike us. We should be on our guard for any duplicities they might attempt. Not many of the dwarves trust us. The elves didn't want a human rider, so there will be opposition from them as well. The best thing we can do is identify those in power and befriend them, and quickly too. Do you think it's possible to remain independent of the different leaders?" She shuffled her wings into a more comfortable position. "Azhihad supports our freedom, but we may be unable to survive without pledging our loyalty to one group or another. We'll soon know either way."